Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and Lamar Jackson are three of the brightest young stars at the quarterback position across the NFL, and all three could be on the cusp of record-setting second contracts. In Jackson's case, that new deal could come from the Baltimore Ravens as early as this summer. Burrow, of course, led the Cincinnati Bengals to the Super Bowl last season, and he's now the face of a franchise that's loaded with young talent, especially at the offensive skill positions around him. Meanwhile, Herbert is viewed by some executives as the premier passer under 25 in the entire league, and now has the talent, along with the roster around him, to lead the Chargers to new heights, as Burrow did Cincinnati last season. And of course, Lamar Jackson already has an MVP on his resume, is one of the most dynamic players in the entire sport. So to get a feel for how the league views Burrow, Herbert, and Jackson, I surveyed a handful of coaches, executives, and NFL scouts to get their thoughts on which young quarterback they'd be most comfortable building their franchise around if they had their pick of the three bright stars today. One AFC offensive coach tells me he'd pick Burrow, quote, by a nose over Justin Herbert, in large part because of his, quote, swag, confidence, and command of a team, unquote. Now, it isn't difficult to envision Burrow exceeding his 4,611 yards with 34 touchdowns and just 14 interceptions last season when he begins 2022 behind a revamped Bengals offensive line and has another year of chemistry with superstar wide receiver Jamar Chase. But the support for Burrow wasn't unanimous from sources around the league, and one NFC executive tells me that he'd love the chance to build around Justin Herbert, in part because he has a clean injury history and that he is, quote, the entire package physically and has all of the intelligence and hunger that you want and need from the quarterback position, with lots of potential to get even better from here. Last season, Herbert was the NFL's second leading passer behind only Tom Brady with 5,014 yards with 38 touchdowns and just 15 interceptions. Now, after the Chargers beefed up their defense, it could create even more opportunities for Herbert to take the next step in his development by making a postseason run that mirrors those that Jackson and Burrow have already led in their careers. Then, of course, there's Lamar Jackson, who one AFC offensive coordinator tells me would be his choice because he feels Jackson's mobility and athleticism give him the best chance to dictate to opposing defensive coordinators week in and week out. For all of the movement in the AFC with Russell Wilson landing in Denver and Deshaun Watson going to Cleveland, having Herbert, Burrow, and Jackson on the same side of the bracket is going to make any road to a Super Bowl that much more difficult for the foreseeable future.